The tense meeting. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. It was a massive room, with high ceilings that seemed to stretch endlessly upward. Alien species from all corners of the universe had gathered, their eyes locked on the table in the center. This was no ordinary meeting. This was a meeting that could decide the fate of the galaxy. Among them was humanity, now represented by Earth's most powerful leaders and diplomats. The humans had come a long way. In the past, they had been viewed as weak, insignificant, just another species on a distant planet. But things had changed. Earth's technology had advanced rapidly, and now humanity was a force to be reckoned with. No one could ignore them anymore. The Galactic Council had invited them to this meeting, but many still didn't believe humanity was ready to take a seat at the table with the most powerful races in the galaxy. The meeting had begun hours ago, and the tension in the room was palpable. Every race in the room had a different agenda, and every species wanted something. Some wanted more resources, others wanted more territory. But one thing was clear. The Council had no intention of giving Earth what it had requested. It was a slow and deliberate game of negotiation, where the strongest made their demands, and the others struggled to keep up. The human delegation had remained quiet throughout most of the discussion. They sat at the table, listening intently, but never speaking. Their faces were calm, almost unreadable, but their eyes showed something deeper, a quiet intensity that no one could ignore. The humans were not as experienced in galactic politics as the others, but there was something about them that commanded attention. They had the sense that the galaxy was on the brink of something monumental. The representatives of the other species exchanged nervous glances. They had heard the whispers. The humans were unpredictable. No one knew what they would do next. They had made it clear that they would not be pushed around. But now, it was becoming apparent that the Council was testing them, pushing them to see just how far they could go. The debate grew louder, as each species pushed their own interest forward. The humans had been quiet long enough, but their patience was wearing thin. Earth had been left out of too many decisions, and the Council's refusal to address their concerns was starting to feel like an insult. Earth had been patient, but now, the humans could feel the weight of their own strength. Finally, the lead representative for Earth, Ambassador Adam Rain, stood up. He had been silent for most of the meeting, listening to the endless bickering and demands. But now, it was time to speak. His voice was calm, but there was a quiet power in it that commanded the room's attention. "We have listened to your arguments, your concerns, and your demands," he began. "But it seems to me that none of you are really listening to us. We came here in good faith, hoping that this meeting would be an opportunity to build something better for all of us. Instead, we are being ignored. Our requests are being dismissed as if they don't matter. Let me make this clear. We will not be treated as second-class citizens in our own galaxy." The room went silent. The alien representatives, who had been arguing moments before, now looked at each other in confusion. This was not what they had expected. No one had ever spoken to the Council like this before. The humans were not afraid to stand up for themselves. Rain's eyes locked with the alien leaders, and his voice grew more intense. "We warned you about this. For years, we have tried to communicate our concerns, but instead of addressing them, you've only made things worse. Now, we are done talking. We will not sit here and let you make decisions that affect our future while ignoring our needs. Earth has been patient, but no longer. Our time has come." There was a pause as the weight of Rain's words settled over the room. The alien leaders seemed stunned, their faces a mix of confusion and disbelief. No one had ever spoken to the Galactic Council with such boldness. The humans were not backing down, not in the face of power and authority. The tension in the room grew thicker, and it seemed as though no one knew how to respond. For the first time in the meeting, the humans had taken control of the conversation. It was clear that they were no longer willing to be ignored. They were done with diplomacy, done with empty promises. One of the Council members, a representative from the Zorathian race, An alien species known for their immense strength and long history of dominance stood up. His voice was harsh, but there was a hint of hesitation. "You dare speak to us like this, human? Do you understand who you're dealing with? We are the most powerful beings in this galaxy. We have ruled for eons, and we do not take kindly to threats." Rain didn't flinch. "You think I'm threatening you? No. I'm telling you that if you keep ignoring us, if you keep pushing us aside, you will regret it. Humanity has the strength to stand on its own. And if you push us to that point, we will not hesitate to take action. We have already warned you. But if you want to test us, if you want to push us to the breaking point, I promise you, you will regret it." The Zorathian representative narrowed his eyes, clearly angry. But before he could respond, another voice interrupted. This time, a voice from the Aelorian delegation, a race known for their calm and rational demeanor. "Enough," the Aelorian representative said, standing up. "The humans are right. We cannot keep pushing them aside. The balance of the galaxy is shifting, and we need to recognize that. It's clear that Earth has reached a breaking point. If we don't change course, we risk everything we've built." For the first time, there was a hint of agreement among the council members. The humans had spoken the truth, and their message had struck a chord. But it was too late to turn back now. The damage had been done. The humans had walked out, and the council was left in chaos. The silence that followed was deafening. The representatives of the Galactic Council could no longer ignore the reality they were facing. They had underestimated humanity, and now they had to deal with the consequences. The humans had spoken, and they had made it clear that their time had come. The Galactic Council room was left in stunned silence after the humans had walked out. The sharp echoes of their departure reverberated in the massive chamber, leaving the once confident representatives of the galaxy's most powerful species unsettled. No one had anticipated such an event. Humanity's boldness had shaken the core of the galaxy's political structure. Inside the council chamber, the alien leaders stood frozen, unsure of how to proceed. The tension was unbearable. The Zorathian representative, still seething from Rain's words, was the first to break the silence. "Do they think they can just walk away like that?" The Zorathian growled, his voice low and threatening. His immense frame towered over the others, his muscles tensed as if ready to spring into action. The Aelorian representative, who had been the voice of reason moments before, now sighed deeply. "They've made their point, whether we like it or not. Humanity is not to be underestimated anymore." His words seemed to hang in the air, and slowly the council members began to process the situation. The humans had done what no other species would have dared, turned their back on the most powerful assembly in the galaxy, sending a clear message that they were not afraid. Ambassador Adam Rain's words echoed in their minds. "You will regret it if you continue to ignore us." What did he mean by that? What could humans possibly do to bring the galaxy to its knees? Far outside the council's headquarters, the scene inside the chamber played out on every screen, viewed by millions of beings across the galaxy. The human message had been delivered not just in the room, but broadcasted to all corners of the universe. It was a clear and undeniable signal. Earth was done playing by the rules set by the Council, and it was not just the humans who were watching. In Earth's capital, back on their home planet, the situation was much the same. The people watched with bated breath as their representatives took a stand against the powerful forces of the galaxy. The leaders had walked out, but that was only the beginning. In a secret underground facility, a meeting was taking place. Several military leaders, scientists, and engineers from Earth were gathered. They had been waiting for a moment like this, waiting for the Council to push humanity to its limits. They knew the galaxy would not be kind to Earth. They had seen the way humans were treated as little more than an afterthought, and they had prepared for the worst. General Elias Roth, a veteran of many wars, stood at the front of the room. His eyes were sharp, betraying no hint of emotion, but those who knew him understood the weight of the moment. "Activate the protocol," he ordered, his voice calm but filled with the gravity of the situation. A technician quickly moved to a console, typing in a series of commands. Moments later, a massive holographic map of the galaxy appeared above the table. The map was detailed, displaying key locations of interest: planets, space stations, and fleets. It also displayed Earth's own assets: hidden weapons, space stations, and ships that had been kept secret from the rest of the galaxy. "The time has come," General Roth continued. "We've waited long enough, and the Council has given us no choice. We've kept our strength hidden, but now it's time to show them what humanity can do. We will not be pushed around any longer." Across the room, several of the military officers nodded in agreement. It was clear that Earth's leaders had made their decision. No more negotiations, no more pleas for understanding. Earth would act, and it would act decisively. Meanwhile, back at the Galactic Council, the representatives had reached a decision. They had no choice but to respond to the humans' bold move. The Council had its own spies, its own network of intelligence across the galaxy, and they were already working to understand just how much humanity was capable of. But no one had expected Earth to have a fleet hidden in the shadows, an entire military force capable of standing toe-to-toe with the galaxy's most powerful fleets. The Elorians, with their advanced technology and pacifist ideals, had long believed that strength could be avoided through diplomacy. But the humans were different. Their resolve was firm, and their willingness to fight for what they believed in made them a dangerous foe. On the other side of the galaxy, the Zorathian leaders were already making plans. They were enraged by the humans' audacity, and their pride could not tolerate such a display of defiance. The Zorathians had always believed that strength was the ultimate measure of power, and they would not allow a relatively young species like humanity to challenge them. "We must show them that there are consequences for their actions," one of the Zorathian leaders said, his tone icy and filled with malice. At the same time, the Arcturians, an ancient and highly intelligent race, began to contemplate the humans' rise. They had watched from the sidelines for years, content to remain neutral in the Council's affairs. But now, something had shifted. The humans were no longer just another species. They were a force that demanded attention. Far across the galaxy, on Earth, the countdown had begun. Military personnel moved quickly, executing plans that had been prepared for years in secret. The humans were about to show the galaxy what they were capable of, something the Council had never anticipated. Back on Earth's home planet, in a heavily guarded facility beneath the surface, the final preparations were taking place. The weapons were being primed, the ships were being readied, and the message was about to be sent. "We are not afraid," General Roth spoke softly, but his words carried weight. "And they will soon learn that Earth does not bend." The holographic map flickered to life once again, and the ships of humanity's hidden fleet began to move. The countdown was almost over, and soon the humans would make their next move. What would the Council do? Would they back down, or would they continue to push humanity to the brink? The galaxy was watching, waiting for the next move in the most important game the galaxy had ever seen. The atmosphere on Earth was tense, like the calm before a storm. Across the planet, people were unaware of the deep, calculated movements taking place beneath the surface. In hidden bunkers and deep space stations, the final preparations for humanity's grand response were almost complete. General Roth stood at the helm of the operation, his eyes fixed on the holographic display in front of him. His military team was ready. Everything was in place. "We can't waste any time," General Roth said, his voice calm but firm. The room around him was filled with the soft hum of machinery and the faint clacking of keyboards as officers entered commands and finalized the weaponry configurations. On the screen, the various fleets stationed across the galaxy blinked in readiness. "Initiate Phase 1, Roth commanded, his voice unwavering. The countdown began. The once hidden fleet, made up of Earth's most advanced military vessels, began to slowly emerge from their hidden docking stations scattered across various systems. Ships, cloaked for years, now powered up, and entered the vast reaches of space. The first strike wasn't an attack, it was a message. The ships traveled silently through space, their sleek designs blending perfectly with the backdrop of the stars. Each ship was equipped with the latest stealth technology, capable of slipping past even the most advanced detection systems. Humanity's fleet wasn't about overwhelming firepower, it was about sending a message that would reverberate across the galaxy, shaking the Galactic Council to its core. Meanwhile, far away in the Galactic Council's chamber, the representatives continued their discussions. The room had an uneasy atmosphere as they debated the next steps after humanity's unexpected withdrawal. The Council was in a state of panic, scrambling to make sense of what had happened. They had underestimated Earth for far too long. It was a mistake, the Aelorian ambassador said, his voice trembling with concern. We never expected the humans to act with such defiance. We've never seen anything like this. Their actions have consequences, the Zorethian snapped. We cannot allow them to walk away and continue to threaten our position in the galaxy. We must act swiftly. While the Council argued, one thing was clear. They were now scrambling to come up with a countermeasure, but it might already be too late. On Earth, the first wave of humanity's fleet was moving swiftly toward a key location, a hidden space station near the outer rim of the galaxy. This station, though remote, housed critical infrastructure for the Council's command network. The humans weren't just sending a message. They were targeting a key nerve center that could disrupt the Council's communication lines. General Roth watched the progress on his console, his mind focused. He knew this was the first step in what would become a larger battle, but it had to be done carefully. If the humans wanted to prove they were not to be trifled with, they had to hit fast and hard. As the ships neared their destination, Roth's eyes narrowed. The station was within their reach. Prepare the first strike, he ordered, his voice a low whisper as he turned to the weapons officer. We're ready, sir, came the response. The fleet readied its weapons, and Roth took one last look at the holographic display before turning his gaze back to the vastness of space in front of him. In the Galactic Council, panic was setting in. Representatives from multiple species had begun to question the Council's ability to control the situation. With humans making moves like this, it was clear that things were no longer as simple as they once were. And as they debated, a warning was sent. In an isolated part of the galaxy, the first strike came without warning. A single burst of light lit up the sky as a powerful electromagnetic pulse erupted from humanity's hidden fleet, targeting the hidden space station the Council had relied on for years. The EMP rendered the station useless, disabling its critical systems in an instant. The galaxy, for a brief moment, went silent. The Galactic Council's communication systems were disrupted. Their control over the far reaches of the galaxy was severed. An eerie stillness followed the attack as the Council's representatives stared at their screens in disbelief. How could they have done this? A Terralorian delegate muttered, his voice betraying a sense of vulnerability. We never saw them coming. The Aelorian representative's face turned pale. This is only the beginning. What do we do now? Back on Earth, General Roth's fleet moved quickly away from the target, disappearing once again into the vastness of space. The mission was a success, but there was more to come. The Council had been hit, and now humanity's message had been delivered. We've made our point, Roth said quietly, watching as the data from the mission streamed across his screen. The galaxy won't forget this. But despite the success, there was no time to celebrate. The Galactic Council had now been shown that humanity wasn't playing games. The quiet had been shattered, and the next move was theirs. The humans were making their mark, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Galactic Council was reeling from the unexpected blow dealt to their power. The once impenetrable networks that connected the farthest reaches of their domain were now in disarray. News of the attack on the space station spread like wildfire, and the ripple effects were felt across the galaxy. The leaders of the various species, once united in their superiority over humanity, found themselves in a state of chaos. questioning their next moves. In the council's chamber, the air was thick with tension. Representatives of the most powerful races in the galaxy gathered in an emergency meeting, their faces etched with worry. Their voices, usually confident and commanding, now faltered as they struggled to comprehend what had just occurred. "This is a disaster," the Zorathian delegate growled, slamming his fist against the table. "How could we have underestimated the humans so badly? Their military capabilities are far beyond what we imagined." "We were warned," the Elorian ambassador replied, his voice tight with frustration. "The humans have always been underestimated. Their resolve, their ingenuity. We thought we could control them. But now they've made their move. We need to act quickly, or we risk losing everything." The room erupted in heated debates, with leaders blaming each other and pointing fingers. The unity that once bound the Galactic Council seemed to be crumbling, and no one could agree on what steps to take next. Some proposed retaliatory strikes, while others argued that humanity needed to be appeased before the situation escalated further. Far from the political turmoil of the Galactic Council, on Earth, General Roth sat calmly at the command center, watching as the reports from the first strike poured in. The operation had been executed flawlessly, but he knew this was only the beginning. The Council would not take this humiliation lying down. The humans had sent a message. But now it was time to prepare for the inevitable counterattack. "They won't stop," Roth said quietly, his gaze fixed on the stars. "The Council won't let this go. They'll retaliate, but that's exactly what we want." His words hung in the air as he turned to his team, all of whom were focused on their tasks, preparing for the next phase of their plan. Humanity's role in the galaxy was about to change forever, and Roth knew that the next strike would require even more precision and coordination. "Increase the fleet readiness," he commanded, his voice steady and purposeful. "We need to be ready for whatever comes next. We've started something, and we need to finish it." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the leaders of the Council continued their frantic discussions. The events of the past few hours had thrown their carefully crafted plans into disarray. The attack on the space station had demonstrated that humanity was no longer the defenseless species they once believed them to be. If anything, it had proven that the humans were capable of tactics and strategies that were far beyond what anyone had expected. The Council's security forces were put on high alert, and strategic locations across the galaxy were reinforced. But deep down, the leaders knew that it was no longer just about defense. Humanity had thrown down the gauntlet, and it was clear that they were no longer interested in peaceful negotiations. "They'll come for us next," the Terralorian representative muttered, his voice grim. "If they have the power to strike at the heart of our network, they will not hesitate to come for our homeworlds." "What do we do now?" asked the Elorian representative, her hands trembling. "Can we stop them?" "We have no choice but to retaliate," the Zorathian said, his voice cold and decisive. "We'll need all our forces, we'll strike back, and we'll make them pay for their insolence." As the Council leaders debated their next course of action, they were unaware of what humanity had in store for them. General Roth's forces had only begun to show the galaxy what they were capable of. The next phase of their plan would take things to an entirely new level. Back on Earth, the final preparations were underway for the second strike, a far more daring and calculated move. Humanity was about to push the boundaries of what was considered possible, and they were willing to risk everything to prove that they would never bow down to the will of the Galactic Council. Roth stood in front of the massive viewport, his eyes scanning the stars. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for too long. It was time to turn the tables. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the countdown to the next phase of the operation began, Roth knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy had ignited a fire in humanity's heart, and that fire would burn brighter than ever before. In the Galactic Council, the tension was palpable. The humans had made their move, and it was clear that the stakes were higher than ever. The Council's fate now hung in the balance, and the actions of the coming days would determine whether they could maintain control or if the galaxy would fall into chaos. The humans had shown their strength, and now the Council had no choice but to respond. But the big question remained: would the Council be able to stop humanity, or had they already sealed their own fate? The answer would soon become clear, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The next few days brought a sense of eerie anticipation to the galaxy. The Galactic Council, now on high alert, had mobilized its fleets and reinforced its defenses, but the uncertainty of what was to come weighed heavily on every delegate. Tensions ran high in the council chambers, where heated debates continued about how to handle humanity's unexpected strike. Their confidence in their dominance over the galaxy had been shattered, and now they feared what humanity's next move might be. On Earth, General Roth stood in the operations room, overseeing the final preparations for the next phase of the plan. His voice was calm but carried a steely determination. "We've sent our message," he said to his officers, who were all intensely focused on their tasks. "Now it's time to show them what happens when you push humanity too far." Across the room, a holographic map of the galaxy flickered to life, with red markers indicating the positions of the Galactic Council's main fleets. The human forces had been quietly building up their strength, operating under the radar, and now they were ready. Roth had spent weeks preparing for this day, the day humanity would strike back. The first wave of the counterattack would be surgical, designed to cripple the Council's ability to respond quickly. Every move had been calculated, every contingency planned for. Humanity's soldiers were prepared to hit the Council's most vulnerable points, leaving them with no option but to surrender or face complete annihilation. "We're not going to give them the chance to regroup," Roth said, pointing at the holographic map. "Once the first strike begins, it's all or nothing. We hit fast, we hit hard, and we don't give them any time to breathe." The plan was audacious, and its success would depend on the precision of every unit involved. One misstep, one mistake, and the balance of power in the galaxy could shift back in favor of the Council. But Roth had no doubts. Humanity had been underestimated for far too long. This was their time to show the galaxy that they would no longer be a pawn in the hands of the Council. The fleet was ready. The first wave of ships was already moving into position, their stealth technology cloaking them from the Council's scanners. The weapons were primed, the commands given. Now, it was only a matter of waiting for the right moment to strike. As Roth looked over the final preparations, he felt the weight of history on his shoulders. If this worked, humanity would not just survive. They would rise as a force to be reckoned with. The Council's days of unchecked power were numbered. Meanwhile, far from Earth, in the depths of the Galactic Council's secure facilities, panic was beginning to set in. The messages from their spies were growing increasingly alarming. They had detected human vessels on the move. A few weeks ago, they would have laughed at the idea that humanity could pose any real threat. Now, they were scrambling, trying to figure out the extent of the humans' capabilities. "We have to stop them before they strike again," the Zorathian representative urged, his voice tinged with desperation. "If we don't, we risk losing everything we've worked for. We need to retaliate, and we need to do it fast." The Aelorian ambassador agreed. "Humanity's tactics are unconventional. If we wait too long, we'll be caught off guard again." But there was one voice that spoke louder than the rest. It was the voice of the Terralorian representative, the one who had always been the most cautious of the Council members. "We cannot afford to underestimate them anymore," he said firmly. "The humans are playing a different game, and if we're not careful, we'll be the ones who lose." As the Council bickered over their response, the first wave of humanity's forces made their move. The human fleet, moving swiftly and silently, struck at the Council's outer defense stations, causing massive disruptions in their communication and transportation networks. The Council was caught off guard, their most secure systems hacked within moments, leaving them scrambling to regain control. Roth had kept his promise. Humanity's attack was swift, precise, and devastating. The first wave had successfully destabilized the Council's infrastructure, cutting off their ability to communicate with the rest of the galaxy. But this was only the beginning. The humans were not content with just a few small victories. Roth had planned for more, and the next phase of the counterattack would take things to a whole new level. The Council's panic reached new heights as reports flooded in. The humans had disrupted their entire supply chain, severing vital connections between the Council's homeworlds and their outer colonies. Ships were stranded, unable to get the supplies they needed. Critical resources were running low, and their military leaders were now scrambling to protect their remaining assets. "What do we do now?" the Zorathian delegate asked, his voice full of frustration and fear. "There's only one thing we can do," the Terralorian said, his expression grim. "We fight back." But even as they made their plans to retaliate, the Council could not shake the feeling that humanity had already won. They had demonstrated something the Council never thought possible. The humans were more than capable of bringing the fight to their doorstep. The next few days were a blur of frantic activity. The Council's fleets began to mobilize, gathering forces from across the galaxy in an attempt to push back humanity's advances. But it was clear that they were no longer in control of the situation. The balance of power had shifted, and the humans were in the driver's seat. Back on Earth, General Roth stood tall as he watched the ongoing battle unfold. His fleet had delivered the first blow, but there was still more to come. The humans had shown the galaxy that they were not to be underestimated. The Galactic Council had made the mistake of thinking they were invincible. Now, humanity was determined to make them regret that decision. "This is only the beginning," Roth said to his officers, his voice steady with resolve. "The Council thought they could play God. Now we show them that humanity is not a species to be ignored." The war was far from over, but for the first time, humanity had the upper hand. And with each victory, they were sending a clear message to the galaxy. Earth was no longer weak. It was a force that demanded respect, and the Council would soon learn that defying humanity came with consequences. The days following humanity's successful initial strikes were marked by an uneasy calm. The galaxy was on edge. News of humanity's sudden and brutal assault spread like wildfire, igniting fear and uncertainty among the various species that had once seen the humans as little more than a primitive race. The Galactic Council had always been the ultimate power, but now they were reeling from the shock of humanity's boldness. For the first time, they realized that Earth's soldiers were not the weaklings they had once thought them to be. Inside the Council chambers, tension simmered. The delegates from the various worlds were anxious and divided. Some demanded immediate retaliation, while others urged caution, knowing the humans were far more capable than they had ever imagined. The Council, once united in their belief of dominance, was now fractured. "We cannot let them think they can defy us without consequence," Zorath, the Zorathian representative, growled, slamming his fist on the table. "We must strike back with everything we have. Show them that the galaxy is ours to rule, not theirs." "I agree," said the Aelorian ambassador, her voice cold and calculating. "They've shown they can attack with precision, but we have superior numbers. We must retaliate quickly and decisively." "But we can't underestimate them," interrupted the Terralorian delegate, who had been warning against overconfidence. "They're playing a different game. We've always relied on our advanced technology and our vast fleets. But these humans, they've already proven they can outthink us. We need to strike with caution, or we may lose everything." But despite the Terralorians' warnings, the Council chose the path of aggression. It was decided that they would assemble a massive fleet, one that would dwarf anything the humans had ever seen, and launch a full-scale counterattack. There was no room for hesitation now. The stakes had been raised too high. The Galactic Council would not bow to humanity's challenge. On Earth, General Roth and his officers watched the news unfold. They had expected the Council to respond eventually, but the speed and scale of their mobilization were unsettling. Roth knew that the Council would come for them in full force. Their move to assemble such a large fleet meant that they were determined to end the war quickly. "We need to be ready," Roth said, his eyes narrowing as he studied the incoming intelligence reports. "The Council will come at us hard, but we've shown them we're not afraid. We need to stay one step ahead. It's our only chance." The humans had already begun to prepare their defenses, hidden away in their secret fleets, far from the prying eyes of the Council. Humanity's most advanced warships were being readied for the impending battle. These ships, equipped with cutting-edge technology and powerful weapons, were the final step in humanity's plan to send the Council a message they would never forget. Roth stood in the command center, his mind racing through the possibilities. The humans had an edge in technology and strategy, but the Council's overwhelming numbers meant they had the advantage in sheer firepower. Still, Roth was determined to make the most of their strengths. "We'll strike fast and hard," he said, his voice firm with resolve. "Our best chance is to hit them before they can even get organized. We can't let them set up a full defense." The plan was simple but effective. A series of coordinated surprise attacks targeting key ships within the Council's fleet. If the humans could strike first, they could cripple the enemy's ability to respond and buy themselves time to regroup. The risk was enormous, but the reward was worth it. If they succeeded, the Council's forces would be decimated, and humanity would hold the upper hand. Roth's team worked tirelessly, preparing the fleet for battle. Every ship, every weapon, and every crew member had a role to play. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. As the day of the attack drew closer, the tension grew unbearable. Officers moved quickly through the command center, checking and rechecking equipment, ensuring everything was in place. Roth paced back and forth, his mind racing as he considered every possible outcome. There was no room for error. The Council had underestimated humanity before. They wouldn't make that mistake again. "All units, prepare for launch," Roth ordered, his voice steady but full of anticipation. "This is it. We make our stand today." Across the galaxy, the Council fleet was nearing readiness. Their massive warships, each one more powerful than any human vessel, were now on the move. They were confident. They had believed that humanity's attack would be a fluke, a desperate attempt by a weak species to push back against their dominance. But now, as they saw the human forces gathering, they began to realize the true scope of the threat. The arrogance that had once clouded their judgment was beginning to crack. In the depths of the Council's command ship, an emergency meeting was called. The mood was grim. The intelligence reports were clear. Humanity's counteroffensive was imminent, and it was going to hit hard. "What's our next move?" the Aelorian ambassador asked, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and frustration. "They're not just running scared. They're organizing. They're preparing to strike back. We fight," the Zorathian delegate spat, "and we make them regret ever challenging the power of the Galactic Council." As the Council's fleet gathered strength, Roth's fleet was already in motion. The first wave of ships set out, cloaked under stealth technology, moving towards the Council's fleet with deadly purpose. The humans were prepared to fight with everything they had. General Roth stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as the stars streaked past them. "This is our chance," he said, his voice steady. "This is where we take control of our fate." As the two fleets closed in on each other, both sides knew that the upcoming battle would determine the future of the galaxy. Would the Council's overwhelming numbers be enough to crush humanity's resolve, or would Earth's soldiers prove that they were capable of far more than the galaxy had ever imagined? The countdown had begun, and with it, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The stage was set. In the cold vacuum of space, the two opposing forces were mere moments away from clashing. On one side, the Galactic Council's fleet, vast and seemingly unstoppable, prepared to bring their overwhelming firepower down upon the humans. On the other side, General Roth's fleet, small in comparison but armed with deadly precision and unyielding resolve, was ready to strike. Roth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the horizon's wrath staring out at the vast expanse of space. His face was calm, but his mind was sharp, analyzing every detail of the situation. The Council was not going to give up easily, but he had come too far to turn back now. Humanity's future rested on this moment. "Ready the fleet," Roth commanded, his voice firm. "We fight for our survival today. No hesitation. We strike fast, and we strike hard." His officers moved quickly, checking systems and preparing for what was about to come. Every ship in Roth's fleet was equipped with advanced weapons and stealth technology. They had perfected the art of surprise, and it was time to put that skill to the test. The first wave of ships had already been deployed, cloaked and moving in toward the heart of the Council's fleet. In the depths of the Galactic Council's flagship, the Eclipse, panic was starting to take hold. The intelligence reports had been clear. Human forces were gathering and preparing for a counterattack. The shock of their previous strikes still echoed throughout the Council, but this time, there would be no surprise. The Council was ready to retaliate with everything they had. "Prepare for battle," the Zorathian delegate ordered, his voice cold and commanding. "Humanity wants war. We'll give them war." The Council's fleet moved into position, hundreds of ships bristling with weapons, their engines glowing like fireflies in the darkness of space. But as they advanced, something strange happened. The human fleet, which had been scattered and seemingly disorganized, suddenly aligned and moved with an eerie precision. "General, we've got a problem," one of Roth's officers reported. "The Council fleet is more organized than we thought. They've detected our movements." "All ships, activate cloaking devices," Roth ordered immediately. "We need to get in close before they can get their full firepower aimed at us." The first volley of laser fire erupted from the Council's ships as they realized they had been detected. Roth's fleet, hidden in the shadows of space, began to emerge, attacking with calculated fury. The battle had begun. A blast of energy shot out from Roth's flagship, striking one of the Council's lead warships. The ship rocked violently, but it didn't break. It fired back, its weapons lighting up the void. The human fleet's small size was proving to be an advantage. Their ships darted in and out of the chaos, hitting key targets and disabling crucial systems without giving the Council a chance to retaliate. On the ground, Roth's fleet wasn't the only force engaged in battle. Humanity's allies, once skeptical of Earth's ability to challenge the Council, had now joined the fight. Every fighter, every warship, every brave soldier in the ranks of the human fleet had one singular goal: to prove their worth and defend their people. The clash in space was nothing short of devastating. Laser beams cut through the darkness, explosions rocked the void, and the sound of collapsing ships filled the silence. Humanity had entered the war with nothing but determination, and now they were proving that they would not be silenced. The Zorathian delegate watched in disbelief as his ships were picked off one by one. "How are they doing this?" he muttered under his breath. "How are they surviving?" "They're not just fighting back," the Aelorian ambassador said, her eyes wide. "They're winning." Roth could feel the momentum shift. The Council's fleet was large, but humanity had the advantage of speed and unpredictability. Their smaller fleet, with its specialized weapons and advanced tactics, was taking a toll on the Council's ships. "Now's our chance," Roth said to his officers. "Take out their command ship. If we can neutralize the Eclipse, we'll cripple them." The human fleet surged forward, locking onto the Eclipse. Roth's flagship unleashed a powerful salvo of plasma torpedoes, which tore through the enemy ships in its path. The Council's flagship, once an imposing symbol of power, now found itself under direct assault. "We need to fall back," the Zorathian delegate screamed as the Eclipse rocked violently under the assault. "We can't let them win." But it was too late. The human fleet had already dealt a decisive blow. The Eclipse was crippled, its engines failing, its weapons systems silenced. The Zorathian delegate could do nothing but watch as the ship slowly drifted, disabled and helpless, into the darkness. Roth's eyes locked onto the screen. "We've won," he whispered, his voice filled with disbelief and triumph. The Council fleet, now in disarray, began to retreat. The humans had proven their strength in a way no one had ever expected. The once dominant Galactic Council was now in chaos, their grip on the galaxy slipping away. Humanity had taken its first steps into the galaxy as a force to be reckoned with. But Roth knew this was just the beginning. The war was far from over. There would be more battles, more challenges, and more enemies to face. But for the first time in history, humanity had stood tall, and the galaxy would never forget it. As the remains of the Council's fleet retreated into the stars, Roth allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. The humans had proven their worth. The galaxy would soon know their name, and it would remember the day when Earth's soldiers struck back and changed the course of history forever.